everyone, welcome to another episode of Triangle Offense. I'm Munish, and as always, I'm joined by Nishant. It was a silent day in the NBA finally after just two games today. The Jazz
Yeah.
winning the sixth consecutive game, the Nuggets finally picked up a win. I think I kind of like some kind of silence because I think there were too many games going on, difficult to keep a track, I was kind of getting burnt out. So I kind of enjoyed the silent day. But I would like to utilize the silent day to talk about something we spoke about a couple of episodes ago. Link in the description below. Is that the domino effect of the James Harden trade?
Yeah.
In the first part of this, we spoke about Bradley Beal and how he might look for a move out of Washington.
Yeah.
The second superstar or star that might fall in the same bucket, I would say, is Zach LaVine. Now, he's not in a totally different position from Bradley Beal, is he? He's putting up amazing numbers. Second highest points scored this season, fifth highest average points scored this season. But the Chicago Bulls aren't doing that well. They're 6-8. And before you know it, they'll be 8-15 with no real future in hand.
Yeah.
So for you, I have two questions, and I'll put it in a two-part segment. One, does Zach LaVine look for a move out? Because he can easily transform a strong team into a serious contender. I can easily see him fitting into the Mavs, into Miami Heat, into all of those contenders which are missing one piece, right? Or he could stay at Chicago Bulls and hope that the Bulls franchise build something around him and become a real contender in the next 2-3 years.
Yeah.
Because they can build teams easily nowadays. You trade a superstar, you get picks, and you have a lot of picks going around, and then within 3 or 4 years, you know that you're a real contender. So first, from Zach LaVine's perspective, what do you think? Do you think he should force a move out, become the second or third piece in a team, and be part of a real strong team that will really contend, or be happy with this 10 spot, 12 spot Chicago Bulls?
Yeah, it's these decisions, these discussions are always so tricky because we don't quite know until a player comes out and says it what he expects out of his career. And you're perfectly fine to say, I'm going to make my money. We've had some prominent footballers that chose to go play in China in the prime of their youth. And they were very clear about it. They said, we have a finite window in which we can make as much money as we can. And then off we go. And we may not get a second career after that. So it's fair. Like I said, and we've said this before, it's easy for us to sit here and say this guy should try to want to win a chip, even if it costs him. We're nobody to say that. But the inkling is, and I don't know if his situation is so bad that he should force a move out. I don't think it's that bad yet, because he's young. With Bradley Beal, he's still youngish, but in Washington, you kind of get the sense that his time's running out. And if he stays there any longer, it's going to come to a point where he may not be as valuable to a prospective chip contender at some point. It's like strike while the iron's hot for Bradley Beal.
Right.
Zach LaVine, his entire future's ahead of him. I'm mighty, as you know, I'm a fan. I'm a big fan. I've been mighty impressed because I saw this guy when he came in those two dunk contests, blew everyone's mind. Best dunker most people have ever seen. Only Jordan would figure in that conversation. And we thought, all right, we see these every year. Fancy dunkers who don't really amount to much in the game. You say, take Diallo, for instance. Amazing in the dunk contest, but like a fringe player at best. Aaron Gordon, good, but not at that level. Like, he's not leading the league or coming close in anything, though he's a good all-round player. I'd still put him in the Julius Randle bucket. Zach LaVine, though, year on year, his growth is so incredible. And you can attribute some of that to being on a shit team with no real other option outside of him. But that still at least speaks to his ability to go get his own shot and make his own plays, because there's nobody else that can assist him. There's nobody that can even help him with a pick and roll screen, right? It's all him.
Right.
And we'll put up his numbers on the screen, and you can see for yourself while I run through them. But the guy's growth has been astounding. So this is his seventh season in the league, right? And over the last 7 years, except for one particular season where he had a horrifying injury, played hardly 20-something games, and that was also when he moved to Chicago. So new team, debilitating injury. Barring that season, he's gone up significantly in points per game every single year. He went from 10 to 14 to 19 to had that blip where he dropped to 16.7 to 23.7, 25.5, 27.4. And who knows if he's done. Like, he continues growing. He gets better on defense. His steals per game go up. His rebounds per game go up. His true shooting goes up. despite being now a volume shooter. He went from being a 34% three shooter on 5 attempts a game 4 years ago to now being a 39% three shooter on 9 attempts per game. It's astounding, his growth, to the point where I keep thinking, well, look, whether he forces a move out or not, that's entirely up to him and his motivation. But there are a few factors to consider for him. One, if he stays in Chicago, maybe they build a good team around him, maybe they don't. But if he looks at himself as potentially a player that can be, the primary option on a chip winning team or anything even close, then I strongly disagree. I think he's a great player, but I don't think he's that guy. We've not seen that yet, at least. We've not seen that side of him. Now, does he look at himself as somebody who can be an all-star level player on a contender? He's absolutely that. For me, I don't see how he can't go be a CJ McCollum in Portland, at the very least.
Yeah.
Right? Or slot into that Toronto backcourt, replace maybe Kyle Lowry, who's aging. I could see that happening. I mean, he can't defend like Lowry, but I could see that happening on offense. So there are situations and there are teams that could absolutely use an explosive offensive threat in the backcourt that Zach LaVine can be. I'd even go so far as saying, how about Golden State? How about swapping out, say, Kelly Oubre for Zach LaVine? That gives them such a boost offensively. So I'm just looking at it as a fan, and I'm saying there are mouth-watering options and opportunities across the league. And should his motivation be to go chase a chip, there are multiple teams that can create. Clippers could absolutely use him. I'm looking at the Clippers; they could use him. Milwaukee, not so much, because he'd have to come at the cost of Middleton, and Middleton, for all of his flaws and inconsistencies in the post game, we don't even know what Zach LaVine can do in the postseason. A postseason game, I mean, not post game. We don't know what Zach LaVine can do. So I'd much rather stick to Middleton, and he's great. At some point, he's going to come good in the playoffs, right? So there's no shortage of teams that could use a backcourt weapon. Now, personally, for Zach LaVine, what could be one other consideration is personally he's grown as much as he can grow, and maybe sure he'll have a few more seasons where he makes incremental improvements. But is it not fascinating just from a play perspective? Forget anything else. Forget the chip. Is it not fascinating as a player to see how much more you can grow when you have elite company?
Yeah.
Like at Chicago, who are you playing next to? Kobe White, blah, blah, blah. Who's really going to facilitate for you? Imagine playing next to Steph Curry for a season.
Yeah.
Or playing with Paul George and Kawhi in LA or any of these teams, right? It's next level, the kind of value that you bring to the table and that they can bring to your growth journey. And as you pointed out, he's criminally underpaid. What's he getting? 19 million, something under 20,
19
right?
million.
I mean,
19 million. Yes. And for the usage rate that he brings to the court, I mean, that's a steal. Yeah,
and look, fair play to the Chicago Bulls. This contract was signed when he just got out of his rookie contract. And of course, Minnesota traded him. The second anyone gets out of a rookie contract, they trade because they're not paying anyone except Wiggins. For some reason, Wiggins they were okay paying, so they traded him out. And Chicago at that point, he was a 19. I think it was a fair contract at that point in time. But now, if he goes into the open market, he's going to get a whole lot more for his. I mean, in a world where Batum gets paid $30 million a year, poof. So there's some selfish angle here too. Right? Do you think he'll get paid more?
I'm looking at it from the Chicago perspective, and let me bring you to that question, right? They made this mistake, or would you even call it a mistake? They traded Jimmy Butler for Zach LaVine. So you realize what kind of player Jimmy Butler went on to be, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if Zach LaVine would ever be the player that Jimmy Butler was or is. So I'm looking at Chicago and like, would they want to make this mistake of trading him? I think they have that kind of fear in them. But I'm looking at Chicago's history. They have never paid a contract over 100 million. Their highest is 95 million. So I see some trouble there. I don't think they would want to give Zach LaVine that contract because you yourself said I don't see him as the main guy in a chip winning team. So even if Chicago is hoping to become a chip winning team in the next 5 years, Zach LaVine might or might not be that guy. That's still something yet to be seen. He does not bring much on the defensive end, like you said. He and Kobe White probably are the worst backcourt, and if you exclude Cleveland, probably they are the worst backcourt in the whole league.
Yeah.
Right. Offensively, he's great, no doubt about that. So, do they want to keep him, or do they just now you've seen it with James Harden, you've seen it with Drew Holiday, you've seen it with Anthony Davis, you've seen it with Paul George. If you have a great superstar on a bad team, the number of picks you get to secure your future is a lot. You can get 5-6 years worth of picks and good players in return if you trade someone like Zach LaVine. And I'm seeing Chicago Bulls like, okay, this guy is not going to win us a chip. So do we trade him and do we secure our future and try to build around, say, all the other people and look at it from that point of view? What do you think they'll do?
Yeah, I think Chicago, surprisingly, they're not quite a small market team. I don't think by any stretch you can consider Chicago a small market, but they behave like a small market team. They behave a lot like how Milwaukee does. And I don't think, you're very right, the whole not paying anyone, not giving out more than $100 million contract at any point, which I think the only time they'll make an exception is when they know they have a sure thing, like when they have their next Jordan. And maybe Derrick Rose would have got overpaid if not for all of those injuries, right? So,
True.
So I think they're really holding out for that. And if that's the business model, what are you doing with Zach LaVine? Because at some point you're going to have to renew his contract, and he's at least looking for, say, a 4-year $100 million deal, right? I mean, look around the league at what guys are getting paid: Donovan Mitchell, Jamal Murray, De'Aaron Fox.
Yeah,
I mean. So this is hyper conservative when I say he's looking at a 4-year $100 million deal at least. And Chicago is not going to give him that. I don't think they're looking at him and saying that's our key to the chip.
exactly.
Close. So they're going to want to trade at some point. Why not trade now when his value is high and when his contract is lucrative to another team? Like if you're a team that's putting together a chip contender, maybe this year or the next, and you're building a project, and you're thinking, this guy is fascinating, Zach LaVine. I don't know if I want him at $25 or $30 million, especially given his lack of, let's say, all-star defensive capabilities. But then if you trade for him now, sure, you might have to give up a pick extra or whatever, but you're getting a player that you can get a test run on his current contract. Absolutely. And if he's worth it, you extend. If he's not, you flip. Absolutely. So I think it's a great proposition. Now, as for Chicago getting a haul for this guy, look, I think the Jimmy Butler trade situation was different. I think there were a number of factors at play. There was team chemistry, there was locker room was a mess, and there was that whole for a year at least, Jimmy Butler was clearly the man, but the franchise kept holding out for Derrick Rose to come back and still maintain that it was his franchise, right? And whatever. So it didn't quite work with Jimmy Butler. So that's a different scenario. Will they get a haul for this guy, for Zach LaVine? When you look at all of the recent trades that have resulted in teams giving up disproportionate assets to land one superstar, all of them have been unicorns in their own right. People that are so unique in their skill set that it's hard to find that in the league. It's hard to even hope to draft that. Like an Anthony Davis, who does what he does. There's like 2 players in the world that can do what he does outside of him, and that's Kevin Durant and Giannis in very different ways. Well, that's about it. So Anthony Davis makes sense and vindicated too. They won the chip the second they got him and gave him over to LeBron, right? And it's the same. James Harden, well, I mean, come on, that's self-explanatory. Paul George, same thing. Westbrook, same thing. These are all MVPs or MVP caliber players, or they've had the face of the franchise saying, "I'm not going to play unless that guy comes here." Right? I don't think that's going to be the case with Zach LaVine. I think you'll get fair trade value. But you might not really get a haul in return unless the other guys are desperate. The only counter argument, and that's largely because of he's a great offensive threat. He's not really an elite defensive player. If he was, he'd be like a Drew Holiday and he'd command the world in exchange, a Queen's ransom for his trade. The only exception, though, that kind of invalidates my entire line of argument is what Golden State got for D'Angelo Russell. Because he's largely the same guy, probably a better playmaker than Zach LaVine, but doesn't defend at all. Doesn't really have too much postseason cachet. Like he's come up clutch in some moments, but largely not a great postseason story. And they got the world for him because Minnesota was desperate. The face of their franchise also wanted this guy badly to team up with him in Karl Anthony Towns. So if Chicago can find something like that, I'd look into who Zach LaVine's friends with and see if they want to, I don't know, maybe Devin Booker and Phoenix want some. And won't that be a sight? Devin Booker and Zach LaVine, nobody's going to defend on that team. It'll just be, it'll be like the Western Conference's Atlanta Hawks. But But I think that's really what they want to do. And I think the key to all of this is the fact that Chicago haven't overpaid a single star,
Right.
except the one that they thought is the man. Michael Jordan was the last guy to really get paid. Derrick Rose would have got paid, number 1 draft pick, MVP, sure. Anything short of that, they're not interested. They'll keep flipping assets till they find their way to the next Jordan or Derrick Rose. So then trade. And if I'm a GM across the league and I have backcourt deficiencies,
Right.
I'm looking at Zach LaVine. Like I'd be, and let me throw a name out there. And like if I were this GM, I'd do it. If I were Masai Ujiri in Toronto, I'd move heaven and earth to get Zach LaVine. Kyle Lowry is not getting any younger. You already have Fred VanVleet secured. Fred VanVleet, Zach LaVine, that's a start. That's a good team.
That's a good team.
Siakam and all of these guys, Anunoby. It's a good team. So I'd probably, if I was Toronto, I'm looking at Zach LaVine as somebody that I can legit get. Might not cost me an arm and a leg, improves me and gives me cover for Kyle Lowry, who's now aging.
I'm actually looking at a stronger team than Toronto Raptors. Now, Toronto Raptors with Zach LaVine would probably make the playoffs.
Yeah.
How do you think
Clippers?
Philadelphia? So Philadelphia have a lot of young guys that they can give off, along with Danny Green and Thibault and Maxey and even Korkmaz, right? So Chicago have a lot of players that they can take and a lot of draft picks they can acquire from Philadelphia. And I think Zach LaVine in place of Danny Green, that would erase some of the pressure of Ben Simmons needing to shoot the 3. You saw how horrible he was. He didn't even hit the net.
Yeah.
So that seemed like a very valid proposition, does it?
In Ben Simmons' defense, that was probably a lob attempt. It looked like it, at least. Right? That's a shot. God bless the guy. That's an interesting little conundrum for Philly, and not a bad problem to have to ponder over if you're the GM and you're sitting in. If you're Daryl Morey and you're figuring out what to do with the squad. The only potential pushback there is the East is very clear now. It's very monochromatic. The East is now who's going to beat Brooklyn.
Right.
Which means who's going to stop the big 2 at least. And if Kyrie decides to show up, already enough Kyrie bashing, the big 3. It's about who's going to beat Brooklyn's big 3, right? What do you need to beat their big 3? You need somebody that can at least remotely contain their scoring and then shoot lights out at the other end. It's the only way a threesome like that can be beaten. Just ask LeBron. So then to top that big 3, you cannot compromise your perimeter defense.
Okay.
It'll be great if you add some offensive threat. Which means Danny Green is a much better pick than Zach LaVine. Zach LaVine can't defend. Zach LaVine, who can defend Kyrie, James Harden on the perimeter? Danny Green can at least give them a run for their money or even try. Not happening with Zach LaVine, right? And also Zach LaVine's a volume shooter. Is there that much of the ball to go around? I think right now Philadelphia are really well set up in their inside-out offense with Simmons and Embiid. And they've got shooters all around them. They've got Danny Green, they've got Korkmaz, they've got Seth Curry, who should have, what is he, 60% this season so far from 3, something like that.
Yeah.
So
and then he got COVID.
Yeah, well, he got everything except he couldn't catch the net. He got COVID, but I like their look right now. I don't think Zach LaVine necessarily makes them better immediately. I don't think that it makes them a good matchup for either. Honestly, it doesn't make them a good matchup for Brooklyn. From Philly's perspective, it also puts them in jeopardy against the Celtics. Any team that has distributed perimeter scoring, it's a problem.
Okay. How about the Mavs? Zach LaVine alongside Luka Doncic instead of Josh Richardson?
Same thing again. They'll give up defense because the whole point they got Josh Richardson was Seth Curry is a way better shooter, right? It's not even close.
Right.
What they decided was we'll sacrifice some of that shooting for a better player overall. And Seth Curry is an off the bench shooter. Josh Richardson stayed up as a starter for the Mavs, and they badly need some defensive shoring up. So Zach LaVine, I think the short answer is Zach LaVine is not going to fit in anywhere where they're not willing to give up a starting 5 piece and compromise on defense. I think any team that's not willing to do that, he's not going to fit in very well. Which is why I was going to say maybe the Clippers. If you're looking out west, you could look at the Clippers and you would look at the Lakers, because both of these teams have enough players around those positions that can guard the perimeter well and in general are A+ defensive teams.
True.
So no one piece is going to hurt them as much. With the Lakers, and they have the offense to boot. So they have a distributed offense where it doesn't hurt them to swap out, say, a Wes Matthews for Zach LaVine in the starting lineup, or even KCP to the bench for Zach LaVine in the lineup, right? I think that's so Schroeder, LaVine, LeBron, AD, Marc Gasol. That's a starting five. Same story with the Clippers. Clippers probably needed even more than the Lakers, and it would probably make them even more potent. Because they're not too worried about defense is sorted, man. Clippers have their defense sorted out. They have for a while now, unless they choose to choke. So then that's an interesting add-on to slap on Zach LaVine, because that's another guy who can go get his own shot outside of Kawhi and Paul George. Their biggest black hole right now. So I'd look at teams like that, teams where the defense is already elite, where they don't mind sacrificing some defense for some offensive edge. Teams like Philly need their defensive edge given their situation and shouldn't at any point be compromising that. So them and the Mavs, not really a great fit.
All right. So that was Zach LaVine. It'll be interesting to see how this situation unfolds. Again, like with the Bradley Beal situation, Zach LaVine has not said anything that he wants to move out of Chicago, nor has the Bulls mentioned or indicated anything like that. So this is just, again, us throwing wild punts out there. It's an episode that will be replayed once this trade happens. But that's all for today. A lot of games to look forward to tomorrow. Some big games out there. Boston versus Philly, I think, is one big game that I'll be looking forward to. So that's all for today, and catch you tomorrow.
All right, man. Just
bye.